KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.
Good morning and welcome to Lambda Weekly. I'm David Taffet and I am here in the studio with Lerone Landis and the late Patti Fink. If you're watching on the video that we're doing, if you're watching on YouTube, you might not see the late Patti Fink because the late Patti Fink is on her way. Our guest today is Bob Williams. He is the, he's the star of Ranch Hand Rescue. He's the founder of Ranch Hand Rescue, which is an animal sanctuary out in Argyle, Texas, which is in Denton County. I was just out there 2 weeks ago, something like that. I love the place. Tell us, what was your mission when you first started Ranch Hand Rescue? What idea did you have in mind?
Well, actually, it was right after I had my stroke. So I started saving some animals, and I really wasn't quite sure what I wanted it to be. But originally, after I gave it some thought, there was 3 things I wanted to accomplish. One is I wanted to establish a sanctuary for special needs animals so that they would have a place that they could live forever for whatever time they had left in a safe, controlled, and protected environment.
Now, we're talking about farm animals, Laura, not you.
Darn.
I know your special needs.
Right. And the second thing was I wanted to establish a rescue working with law enforcement in Texas to have accountability for people's actions in terms of animal abuse. Texas has about 22 counties that are extremely aggressive in prosecuting animal abuse cases, and I really felt that surrendering them to avoid prosecution and some of the other things that were happening in terms of really monitoring these cases, we needed to be more aggressive on. And so I wanted to have that be the second part. And the third thing was I wanted to help people. And that was really important, to be able to save animals and be able to help people, and then determine as an organization how do we make all that happen.
What typically happens to animals who've been abused and they're like really undernourished, or they're usually just put down?
Well, it depends. We're talking about farm animals here, and so animal abuse, typically, you've got a couple of different kinds. You've got the neglect piece, which is where people starve animals, and I think that that's just as cruel as if you beat one or that sort of thing. We get cases in with fractured jaws and severe cases of laminitis, and it's severe neglect. My personal belief is that our children and our elderly and our animals can't take care of themselves, so we need to take care of them. We need to help take care of them. And in these cases, instead of just seizing the animals, we want to make sure that people are arrested and prosecuted for those offenses, because I believe all life is precious, and whether you starve an animal to death or whether you beat them or whatever the case may be, it's wrong.
You know, and there are different degrees of cruelty. Did you find a big increase last summer, this past summer and the summer before with the drought, from some people who might not have had that intention but just couldn't afford the feed and just weren't intelligent enough to go out and ask for help?
Well, yeah, and certainly there are cases. We work to assist law enforcement in these cases. So our goal is always to keep the animals with the family. But there's a difference between somebody, running into hard times, all right, and doing nothing, and that's where I have an issue. So what I'm about to say is going to sound kind of harsh, but it's the reality of the times that we're living in. From an accountability standpoint, if you have 7 horses and you lose your job and you can't afford to pay for them, I believe that it's your responsibility to find them homes and to make sure that they're cared for. And so it doesn't matter if hay goes to $150 a bale or whatever the excuse is, something still needs to be done for the best interest of the animal. And doing nothing is just not an option. So, we've worked with families to provide them with feed and hay and to help them find homes for their horses. But at the end of the day, most people take on more than they can handle, right, is the reality of it. And so, from an accountability standpoint, they really should be responsible for the animals that they have.
And I'm not excusing it. I'm saying somebody who just isn't even thoughtful enough for their animals to go out and ask for the help. And so but during the drought, did you find that there was a big rise compared to the previous summer?
I'd say the challenge with the drought was people dumping animals.
Oh.
And so many of the counties would find animals walking down the road, you know what I mean? And so since we work with law enforcement, we would do everything we could to assist them in placing those animals rather than seeing them euthanized.
Good. Okay.
Before the show, you told me this wasn't your first job, and I told you this is kind of something I've always wanted to do myself, but I wouldn't have the first idea how to even start. So did you grow up on a farm? Did you already own the farm? How did you even know how to, I wouldn't know where to start.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting, because it is kind of a funny story, a little long one. I don't want to bore anybody. I had a stroke. And one of my closest friends is Doris Roberts, who plays the mom on Everybody Loves Raymond. And I was actually with her when I had my stroke. We were having lunch, and I wanted to go back to her house and lay down. And she took me to, she said, no, I'm going to take you to the doctor. And I said, no, I really want to go lay down. And she said, no, you're going to go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor, and he said, I think you're having a stroke. And within 20 minutes, I was in the medical center and getting treatment. And I've had a pretty fascinating life, so I was going to write a book. I decided that I was going to leave Motorola because I was young to have a stroke. And the doctor had said to me, this is really not good that you would have a stroke at this age, and you need to really think about some lifestyle changes. So Doris has written a couple of books, and she said, well, I'll help you. And I wanted my book to be a motivational book. So what happened was I came back to Dallas, and I retired from Motorola, and I started writing my book, and I got on the 4th chapter, and it was I got kind of stuck. So I called Doris, and I said to her, I'm on the 4th chapter, and I'm starting to have some trouble here with kind of where I'm going. Can you give me some advice? And we talked through it. And I said, but something interesting has kind of happened. I went to this place, and I don't know if you guys have heard of them, called Trade Days. And they have them in different parts of Texas here. And there was a little goat, and he was in a cage, and he couldn't turn around, and he didn't have any room to stand up, and he was just shoved into this little cage. And I said to the guy, how much is that goat? And he said $60. And I said, well, why don't you have like a little pen for him to walk around in or something like that,
Right.
And he said, well, that's really none of your business, but if you want the goat, then, you can buy the goat. So I pulled out $60 out of my pocket and gave him the $60 for the goat, And I went to pick up the cage, and he said, well, that doesn't include the cage. And I said, well, what do you want me to do with the goat? I mean, I have to transport them. And so he said, well, you have to go buy a cage. So here I go wandering around to buy a cage. And I found a cage, and I bought the goat, and I folded down the back seat of my Cadillac, and away I went with this goat. All right?
Wow. What a sight to see.
Yeah. And so my partner, who owns the American Pet Spa and Resort, his vision had always been, when he built the pet spa, that he wanted people to know that when they came down his driveway, that they were in a place where animals were loved and revered, and it really is a very special place, and it's a place of healing. So, and he'd said to me one day, I want to kind of put some enclosures along the driveway, and maybe put some rabbits and stuff like that in there. And I thought to him, are you crazy? Rabbits? And he said to me, well, how do you feel when you see a rabbit alongside of the road? And I said, well, I feel pretty good. And, you know, I think it's cute. And he said, well, that's kind of the feeling I want to generate. I want to give people a good feeling when they pull in. And so in my mind, I thought, well, this is a great idea. He's going to love this goat, you know. And what had happened is I started to save some animals. And what I found is that as I was in recovery from my stroke, because I had to go through about a year's worth of rehabilitation, it was very therapeutic and very calming. And one day, I happened to be up at the pet spot, and of course you have to understand that, you know, Marty runs his own ship. There can only be one captain, and so when I'm up there, it's kind of like, you know, here he comes again, you know. So what's he going to do this time? And what happened is this guy came in, and he said, I want to talk to the guy that takes care of the animals. And at that time, we had 5 or 6. And I said to him, so they called me and said, there's a gentleman here that wants to talk to you. And I walked in the lobby, and there's this great big guy, like 6'6", 350 pounds. And he said, here, I got a check for you for $250. And I said, for what? And he said, my wife brings our grandkids up here to, you know, see the animals, and they just love them. And he takes his dogs to Marty. And he said, I want to give you this check to help pay for feed. And I said,
wonderful.
well, I don't have a way to take your money because I'm not a public charity. And he said, well, I can't go home with the check. And I said, you know, you look familiar. Who are you? And he said, I'm Carl Mock, and I played football, played for the Houston Oilers for 13 years, and he lives near Argyle. So I said, well, I'll tell you what. Every year, we do a huge party for the orphanage, the Cumberland Presbyterian Orphanage. And what makes that party special is that the kids give us a list of what they want. And we actually go out and buy them what they want. So if they want an MP3 player or whatever the case may be, that's what they get. They get a lot of gifts, but they usually don't get things they want. So I said, I'll take your money, we'll buy the kids gifts, and we will put your name on them, all right? And that was the start of saying, you know, we have some farm animal issues here in Texas, and as I started investigating, I found that there wasn't a lot of monitoring, and I thought we could put together a strong board, and we could start a public charity. So the question to your answer is, no, I have never been around horses, or a cow, or anything else, all right? And so I had to go out and find the absolute best people that I could find. And actually my coworkers at Motorola and everybody that knew me, when they found out that I was doing this, said, Bob, you know what I mean, is doing this. But it's been by far, you know, the best thing that I've done in my entire life. You know, I think I've done a lot of good things, but this really tops it all.
Okay, so now you have, I know you have 2 llamas, 2 alpacas, how many horses? 5, 6, 7, 10?
Well, we have 36 permanent residents.
Okay.
And that's comprised up of goats, llamas, sheep, horses, miniature horses.
Do you know who wasn't there when I was there last week? Marlo. Have you gotten rid of Marlo, the goat?
Marlo's still there.
Marlo's there. I didn't see her. Marlo is this goat that has ears that go like this, so she looks like that girl.
Right. We named her. That's why we named her Marlo. She looks like that girl. She's got those floppy ears, yeah.
Now, American Pet Spa, Patti, big pet owner. Okay, so if you want to watch your pet, you can watch on video cam.
Really?
Anytime, yes. Every dog room is equipped, unless your dog is out in the swimming pool. Now, if your dog doesn't know how to swim, swimming lessons are provided. She's laughing, as if, am I right?
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. Okay, so now when your dog is back in his pet room, there's cable provided, each room separately.
Well, that's
wired.
good because, our two dogs are lovers of television, and they have their favorites, and it requires cable. So that would be,
It does.
that would be a good thing to have.
Well,
Just letting you know, all this is available.
They particularly love Law and Order reruns, so
do
as long
they?
as we can get TBS, we're good.
Well,
TNT.
Now, Bob, you only do farm animals, no dogs
No,
and cats.
But this is right. That's Marty's thing.
Okay.
American Pet Spa with which is a separate part of the ranch.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have anything to do with the pet spa. That's Marty's thing. But what I will tell you is that it's really funny to see because my office is there, right? So because we have the front acreage for the sanctuary of the pet spa, and I hear them coming in talking. So they have movie night, and they for the dogs, and they play something different all the time. And Star, who's been there for years and years, and they give them doggy popcorn. And then when he was talking about the swimming, Marty actually has a pool that he built, a built-in swimming pool for the dogs. So
I wasn't kidding. I'm not making this up.
It's really unbelievable. Yeah, it's a very special.
We believe you.
It really is a labor of love with a staff.
I have got to go up there.
Very caring. Yeah.
You do need to go up there. It is the most wonderful, idyllic place. If you're ever tense, just spend some time.
Business
with your
owners,
favorite
tell
animal,
KNON's
and
listeners
just
about
roll
your
in.
business. You can put
I guess as you're pulling in, it must be like, wow, Noah's landed right here.
Right.
It
people
feels
are
like
pretty
that.
surprised when they.
I'm assuming. Oh, you already said the place is kid friendly because I would want to bring my
Oh,
daughter.
yes.
Oh yeah,
And,
absolutely.
you know,
David went.
there are certain. I was there, right? There are certain horses that are gentler than others. There are several miniature horses like Midnight. We'll talk about Midnight after our break. There's a new horse there. His name's Logan, 20 years old, starved, came in 200 pounds underweight. He's gained back about 100.
Yeah.
But this horse, when you go in, he kind of bends his head. Now, he's not cowering. What he's doing is he wants you to come up next to him to snuggle with him. Sweetest horse.
Make
I mean,
the hand move is what we say.
I mean,
Cats, dogs, everybody does it.
for a
Make the hand
kid to
move.
come up to Ranch Hand Rescue, that's the horse to put him with, because what a sweetheart that horse is. Only wants love, and whoever owned him before starved him. Yeah, how can you do that to a 20-year-old horse? They've had this horse for 20 years. Maybe, like Gabrielle, you've only had her, 4 years? 20 years. 20 years they've had this horse.
So she's okay to neglect.
Not saying you would.
No, of course I wouldn't.
Yes, I am. We need to take a break. You're listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3 KNON FM. I'm Dave Taffet. I'm here in the studio with Lerone Landis and the late Patti Fink, and our guest is Bob Williams from Ranch Hand Rescue. He was the cover story in Dallas Voice this week, so pick up a copy of Dallas Voice. If you want to read more, see a couple of pictures. I have more pictures online of some of the animals, but we're going to take a break, and we'll be back right after this.
business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.
Howdy, y'all. This is Johnny Baker Jr. from Oak Cliff, Texas. The only type of Blue Monday I can stand is if Fats Domino is playing the piano. To fix this, start your week right. Listen to the Magic Time Warp Show with Ranger Rita, Action Annie, and Rockin' Robin. Soothe your Monday morning groove from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on KNON 89.3. We are the voice of the people.
Want to hear some great Texas blues? KNON has the CD for you. KNON's Texas Blues Radio Volume 5, our latest blues compilation CD to benefit community radio, sponsored by Forever Young Records. This CD features 15 tracks and 60 minutes of great original Dallas-Fort Worth blues from Tutu Jones, Blues Boy Bo, Buddy Whittington, Andrea Dawson, Kirkland James, Sonny Colley, Johnny Red and the Roosters, the Chris Watson Band, the Two Tones, the Rough Cut Blues Band, Jeff Stone and Charlie Love, Dave Millsap, Sirloin and the Ass-Kicking Machine, Michael J. and the Paul Bird Band, and JJ and the Detonators. We're only selling 1,000 copies and it will never be reissued. Get your copy now at Forever Young Records in Grand Prairie, Record Town in Fort Worth, and in Dallas at Bill's Records and Rewind Music. The CD is available as an MP3 download at KNON.org. All the proceeds benefit community radio, KNON. For more info on Texas Blues Radio Volume 5, visit us at KNON.org. Get your copy now and hear some real Texas blues. Your ears will thank you for it.
Listen to Lambda Weekly on 89.3 KNON FM Dallas.
And this is Lambda Weekly. I'm David Taffet here in the studio with late Patti Fink and Lerone Landis.
This is Kimberly Truex of the GLBT Wedding Expo, and you're listening.
And just for our listeners, not our podcast watchers, Patti, am I running the board?
No.
Oh, okay. I normally do that kind of thing. Okay.
Our producer Clint is here.
Yes, it's not that we want to name names, Clint, but our guest today is Bob Williams. He is the founder of Ranch Hand Rescue. You have about 6 employees there right now,
yes,
and need more, but like any nonprofit who has the money. Patti, you had a question about your sister's property?
Yeah, well, my sister lives across the street from, in rural Texas, down on the coast, and across the street from her is a very big acreage, where my understanding is that in Texas there's a law that gives you a tax break, property tax break, if you have farm or ranch land. And in order to qualify for that, you have to have some farm or ranch animals on your property. And the guy who owns this land has put about 15 to 20 cattle on this big acreage, and kind of just leaves them there. And they're really hungry, and especially in the drought times. I mean, they've chewed the same, brown weeds over and over, and they're not getting any food. So she was buying feed, which is easy to do in rural Texas, but expensive to keep doing. And when she was out there, because it was just breaking her heart, and they would come running from every direction to get the feed because this guy was not doing his job. And so, she's called him because she knows who he is, and he says he'll be out, but he never comes. So I wonder what is a recourse for a person like that, for a person who is observing this kind of neglect of animals. What can they do?
Well, the first thing is that we get about 50 emails a week in terms of tips, and we get about 25 phone calls with the same types of situations. And what we tell everybody is to call the local sheriff's department, or if you're in a city, your animal control. The sheriff's department, or whoever's in charge of the county, really needs to be the one to investigate it. Texas law is really clear. The worst thing that you can do, and I know that this is terrible, but in order for law enforcement to act, there has to be probable cause and a reason. So when people feed or bring water to animals, and I know it's difficult, but if they have food and water, then law enforcement can't really do anything, all right? So we always tell everybody to report it, let the sheriff's department, they know how to do their job, in terms of monitoring it, and we'll be happy to help follow up on these cases if it's in our area. But at the end of the day, the sheriff's departments, they want to arrest people for doing the wrong thing, okay? And so once they're alerted, they will get in and they will investigate the cases and make sure that the right thing is done for the animals.
How do you all get most of your animals? Do you go pick them up yourselves, or does through the course of rule that these animals need to be removed for whatever reason, does the state bring them to you?
Well, how seizure works is, so our calls come in from sheriff's departments, and what happens is that we're told of a case, and that there's going to be a possible seizure, we go out in an assistance perspective to analyze the animals, provide input in some cases. The animals, the Sheriff's Department then has to go before the court. They have to get a warrant. Usually in every case, when we're involved, the animals are awarded temporary custody to us. Within 10 days, there's a hearing, and that's when the district attorney or one of his staff or her staff has to go and prove that there's been neglect. At that point, the animals are awarded permanently to Ranch Hand Rescue. And then they go into quarantine. Then between the Sheriff's Department and the district attorney, they will determine if criminal prosecution is going to be necessary in these cases and how they're going to move forward. We're proficient at providing that documentation to them. So prior to that happening, they've already got great photos and they have a history of what happened and so on and so forth. And then what we do is temporary custody allows us to start medical treatment immediately, which we do. But we have to vaccinate for Coggins and for rabies. And we have to quarantine to make sure that they don't have other diseases like strangles and some other things. And then once they're out of the quarantine period, they're transported to us, where usually most of the animals that come in are in quarantine for about 30 days. It takes a little bit of time for the prosecutor's office and the Sheriff's Department to determine if they're going to move forward with criminal prosecution. And in most cases they do, all right, because the animals wouldn't have been seized without proving neglect and or cruelty, all right? So a lot of these cases that you see, especially with animals that come in with, like for example, we've got one with a broken pelvis, we've got one with a fractured jaw, I mean, those kinds of cases, they're severe cases, and there just isn't any question about what happened.
Mm-hmm. It kind of sounds like you're like a foster parents, but for a foster system for the animals. Did the owners who get into trouble and have their animals removed again for whatever reason, do they have a chance to get their stuff together and try and get their animals back?
No. Once they've been seized, they're never going to get them back.
Good.
And I believe, the court can award them back, so I should probably correct myself there. But once they've awarded them to us, our job is to keep the animals safe and to rehabilitate them. So the way that it really works is our foster families, we have 18 in Texas, and our adoptees are all completely confidential. So there's a video on our website you can watch about our work at ranchhandrescue.org. And the reason that we keep those confidential are because these are very bad people that we're dealing with. People that are convicted of animal cruelty and abuse. It's number one among sex offenders. Every serial murderer that ever serial murdered. All right, so we'll probably find out that this guy in Connecticut had a history at some point in his life of animal abuse. And then about 15% of violent criminals. So they're not nice people. Law enforcement knows that this is what we call a gateway crime. Denton County is probably the best in the state of Texas and one of the best in the country in terms of using this. They understand that if animal abuse is happening, there's probably something else going on. Mm-hmm. And whether
I bet they've gotten better having you there.
Well, actually, we've gotten better because of them.
Because of them, too.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, because they have some of the best people. And, law enforcement across the state, they typically, people, they bash cops, right, until they need one, you know what I mean? And it really bothers me because I see the good and the kindness and the compassion with these police officers when they go out with these animals. And men and women who just really have so much love, and it disgusts them. And so they want to do their job, but they need to be able to do it within the law. Sure. And it's really wonderful to watch.
Any experience with Dallas County?
Yes. It's been excellent.
Good.
Yeah,
that's good to hear.
Excellent.
You had one experience recently with Collin County, where Collin County, the Sheriff's Department did the right thing, the DA did the right thing, but what happened there?
Well, we lost a big case. We lost a case with 6 horses. One of them had died. Of course, the horses are all in our custody. And it was Shelby, the one that had the huge impalement, all right? And a jury found the defendant not guilty. And so, you know, the sheriff's department did everything they could, and the district attorney did everything they could. But if a jury finds the defendant not guilty, then that's
nothing you can do.
The people have spoken, and we're not happy about it, but it's how it is, and it's hard to believe, but it happened.
Okay, now I want to go on to the helping people part. This is the part that, you know, Bob just had this little idea, you know, maybe we can take these animals and help people a little bit. But he's also on the cutting edge forefront of veterinary medicine, of stem cell research, of just all kinds of things. Let's start with Midnight. Midnight came in without a hoof and the bottom part of his leg.
Right. Yeah, Midnight was seized for abuse and neglect south of Fort Worth, and he was originally awarded to the Humane Society of North Texas. And at that time, Sandy called me, who was in charge of their equine group, and said, you know, we've got this horse. He's in really bad shape, and there's no way we can care for him. And so just imagine that, you know, so he's missing his hoof, his coffin bone, and he just has a nub that somebody cut off your ankle, right? And basically that's what he has. So and she said, since you have a sanctuary, will you take him? And I said, absolutely. So we went and got him, and we brought him up to the sanctuary.
Miniature horse.
Yeah, he's 36 inches tall.
Yeah.
And
that's almost as tall as I am.
Yeah, it's about the size of a big dog, you know. And so I believe, you know, and I have to tell you.
I was going to say, but what did you do for him?
Well, that's what.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
You know, Doris and I have been friends for many years, and one of the things that she taught me was I don't give in, I don't give up, and I don't take no for an answer. And I really have, I learned that. She's been a great role model for me, not just a friend, but I really believe that that is what we do, all right? And so when I got this horse, everybody told me that the horse had to be euthanized. And I just couldn't fathom that, because I understand that when there's no hope, that animals need to be euthanized. But what we're known for at Ranch Hand Rescue is we take the absolute worst cases. If a county's doing a big seizure with 70 horses, or, you know, you read about it on the news, we're not the group that they call. We're the group that they call and say, look, we're going to seize 70 horses. We got 5 critical. Will you take those? All right? And those are the ones that we're involved in. Because we run like a hospital 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So in the case of Midnight, you know, I had all these vets that said to me, you need to euthanize the horse. You know, it's impossible. Horses have to have 4 legs, and you can't have a horse with 3 legs. Something's going to happen. He's going to break his good leg, and, you know, so on and so forth.
Well, and we do have the cases, like in the Kentucky Derby or one of those, a horse a few years ago broke something significant, and they euthanized the horse right there on the track.
On the track, right. And so what happened with Midnight is, so Hillary Clinton said once, you know, it takes a village, right? And I really believe that. You have to bring a lot of good people together to figure out. I think there's a solution for every problem. And when you kind of brought that up about my background, I got the best people, all right, to advise me, guide me. I mean, you know, I never had any fear of animals or horses or anything else. So it's just about, you know, get in and do it. And if you do have fear, you know that you can do anything you want in life. You just have to go out and do it. So that's what I did, you know. And with Midnight, I couldn't believe that there wasn't a way to help this horse. And what I knew was that there was a horse that came out of Katrina that they ended up putting a prosthetic leg on. So I thought, if worse comes to worse, we can amputate, all right, and we can put a prosthetic on him, and hopefully he can have a good life, because at the time he was only 4 and a half. So Fox News came out and did a story, and most of the Dallas stations came out and they did a story on Midnight, and we were going to go down the path of raising money and amputating above his hock. Now let me just tell you that everybody, I mean, the emails that came in, and, you know, people were telling me I was nuts, and, you know, what are you doing, and so on and so forth. But when I look into their eyes, I know that they're not ready to go. They tell you, all right, and I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. And so, and Midnight wasn't ready to go. He had and he was extremely sweet. But when you have a horse like that that's been beaten, and they cower in the corner, and they can't move because he's only got 3 legs, there's a trust that we have to rebuild, and then there's a bond that happens, and when that bond happens, it's very special. So I was watching a program one night, and I saw that they were making prosthetics for kids, and they were born deformed, and they were making prosthetics, and I thought, if they can do it for people, why not for an animal? And what happened is I called some of our board members and one of our vets and the prosthetic company. We got a call from Prosthetic Care, and the guy said, I was watching this news story with my daughter, and my daughter said, Daddy, you have to help that man and that horse. So he goes, whatever you need, I'll do it, and I'll donate. We've never done it before, but we'll figure it out.
Wow.
And so so they came out, and we thought, what, we'll try it. But there was a big process we had to go through, because midnight, he couldn't lay down, right? And once he laid down, it took him almost an hour to get up because he couldn't figure out how to maneuver. So the first thing we had to do is we had to, rebuild that human bond with him. And then we had to teach him how to stand, all right? Sandy knew some people at a company called CareSoft, and they donated a boot to us. They couldn't donate a new boot to us because they're real expensive, but they gave us a used boot. And what we did every morning was we kind of took this shoe, and we stuffed it with a bunch of paper, and we would duct tape it around his leg in an attempt to teach him how to shift his weight and how to stand on the leg. In the meantime, the prosthetic company had come out, and they were making molds and casts of the hoof because nobody really knew what to do.
And it's a small one.
It's a small one, yeah. It's Midnight's. I mean, he's literally been featured all over the world. I mean, it's amazing. He's been in every major news organization and Time Magazine for kids and just everywhere.
We need to take a break in a minute, but what happened was you started getting phone calls from parents and from doctors asking to let their patients see Midnight. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, we've become famous, I think, for a couple things, right? But one of them is that Midnight, we call him the Horse of Hope. And we call him that because, he's the first horse ever in the world to receive a prosthetic leg without amputation. And one of the things that became evident early on with the way that he bonded with everybody was that kids, prior to having amputations, could come out and meet Midnight and understand that when we take his leg off, that he's immobile, but that when we put his leg on, he can walk and run and just be a horse. And so we've had kids from all over the country. And because of HIPAA laws and some of the other things, we can't share many of the stories, but there are some of these kids that have come forward. And Fox and Channel 8 and some others have done some wonderful stories on some of the kids that have come out prior to having amputations and built this bond with Midnight. But it's not just that. It's also he visits veterans and families of wounded warriors, and of course children's hospitals and that sort of thing. And he goes to summer camps for amputees and that sort of thing. And he's a very special little horse. And people look at him and they say, you know what? If this little horse can do it, I can do it. And after break, I'll tell you a little bit about the prosthetic and how it's made.
You're listening to Lambda Weekly on 89.3 KNON FM. We're talking to Bob Williams from Ranch Hand Rescue, which is out in Argyle. I'm Dave Taffet, here with Patti Fink and Lerone Landis. We'll be back with more right after this.
If you are the low-income parent or guardian of children in need of childcare, there are programs available in the area that may be just right for you and your kids. Texas Workforce Commission offers solutions for families in need of assistance. Find them on the web at twc.state.tx.us. Click on Programs and Services in the blue bar at the bottom of the page to find out if you are eligible. 211 Texas, a program of the Texas Health and Human Services Commission, also offers child care provider referrals for families seeking subsidized child care. Contact them at 211texas.org or dial 211. If dialing 211 directly doesn't work on your telephone, you can call 877-541-7905.
Hey, baby.
Sonny Bryan's Catering presents the 14th annual KNON Blues Festival on Saturday, January 26th and Sunday, January 27th at Poor David's Pub. Join us for the biggest blues event of the year, starring the Royal Rhythmaires, Bobby Patterson, Blues Boy Bo, the Aaron Burton Band, Andrew Jr. Boy Jones featuring Carrie LaPie, Pete Barbeck and Seventh Son, Bonafide Blues, the Deep Ellum Rhythm Kings, the Dallas Blues All-Stars featuring Hash Brown and Mike Morgan, the KNON Blues Review with J-Back, Sonny Boy Mark, Blue Lisa, and Jeff Stone, Big Charles Young, the Drew Lane Band with special guest Sirloin, and the Super Kings. This is the big one. You never know who's going to show up as a special guest. Don't miss out on this huge blues show. Advance tickets are only $15 and are available now at knon.org, Bills Records in Dallas, and Forever Young in Grand Prairie. See you at the 14th annual KNON Blues Festival presented by Sonny Bryan's Catering.
Hey, baby.
This is Lewis from UT Arlington, and I listen to Lambda Weekly podcast at lambdaweekly.com.
And this is Lambda Weekly. I'm Dave Taffet here in the studio with the late Patti Fink and Lerone Landis. Bob Williams from Ranch Hand Rescue in Argyle is our guest. We're talking about Midnight, the Horse of Hope. He's a miniature horse with a prosthetic partial leg. Right. The bottom part of his leg is what's been replaced. He works with kids beautifully. I mean, the kids take to him, he takes to kids. In fact, when I was there and it was raining and he had to stay in his little pen, boy, was he annoyed. He was just, it's like, hey, I'm supposed to be doing something. He just didn't like that.
So he finally came out of his shell and embraced
this horse has been in front of at least 10,000 people.
Oh, wow.
He's had
He's
that
a
kind
star.
of... You have another horse there. I want to go on. We have so much to talk about. You have another horse there named Phoenix. Tell us what's going on with Phoenix.
Yeah, can I tell you one thing about
Sure,
Midnight, though?
sure.
I wanted to tell you about the prosthetic, because he wears an actual human prosthetic.
Mm-hmm.
So the prosthetic's made of acrylic resin. The inside is made out of what we call pelate gel. And then it's got a special cushion for his nub. And prosthetics are made so that the weight shifted. And the straps are the same type of straps that they use on the space shuttle. And the bottom is a tire tread, all right? And he's on his 6th version now of his prosthetic leg. So it's really fascinating as to how the whole thing was developed. And it's a clamshell, and we take it off 3 times a day, and we massage his leg, and we powder it, and we then we put it back on.
And learning to powder it is something they learned from some of the kids who were coming who told them that that's what you need to do.
Oh,
because the horse didn't tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I had Lily, who's 14 years old, said to me one day, have you ever thought about putting powder on his leg? Because every night my daddy takes my legs off, and he puts cream on them, and then he powders them, and then he puts my legs back on. And I thought, and here's this 14-year-old girl, because, the horse can't tell us. Mm-hmm. So I talked to the vet about it, and he said, yeah, let's try it. So we use Gold Bond powder. I probably need to call them and tell them we need like a sponsorship or something. But we do. And, of course, a lot of what we learn from people and kids with prosthetics, because they tell us where their pain pieces come from, you know what I mean? And it allows us to help Midnight. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
Awesome.
Let's talk a little bit about Phoenix. Phoenix is your new rising star.
Right.
Phoenix is undergoing stem cell therapy, which could actually revolutionize veterinary medicine, but it has human applications too.
Right. So I think, running any organization, again, it is about bringing great people together. All right. And as the CEO, I never claim to know it all. I learn every day from people in law enforcement about things that are changing. I learn things from vets. I learn things from our volunteers. But the one thing that I have that I think I try to share is that, I really believe in all my heart that there's a solution for every problem. Phoenix was not a criminal case, because he was actually dumped in Denton County, and his hoof and his hoof wall were completely torn off, and he lost about 1/3 of his coffin bone. And actually, when the Denton County sheriff's deputy called me. He said, you know, we're going to euthanize this horse, but I wanted to call you because of your success with Midnight, plus I know you're a little crazy. And before we put this horse down, I want to let you know what's happening. And I said, well, let me go meet him. So I went out with Adam, who was one of our staff members at the time and a terrific young man. And we went out at 10 o'clock at night, and it was pouring rain, and Phoenix was laying down in the mud, and I shined my spotlight on him from my truck. And I went out with this horse, and I looked at him, and he immediately lifted his head up, right? And Adam and I worked to get him up. And I just knew that I couldn't put him down. So I told the deputy that I would take him, all right? And we brought him to Ranch and Rescue. And literally, again, everybody said, there's no hope for this horse. You have to euthanize him, all right? It's just, he's missing his hoof. And in almost every case that we know of, the horse is just put down. And when I took him to my lead vet, who's also on my board, Dr. John Bitter, he said, Bob, you need to euthanize the horse. And because there just isn't really any hope. And I said, well, what's his chances? And he said, maybe 15%. And I said, well, that's good enough for me. So let's try to figure it out. Because we can always put him down if we fail, but we can't un-euthanize him. Mm-hmm. So it was not a popular decision for me to make that, especially in terms of some of the people on my board, right? Because they were worried about the cost. One of the things is Kim Thomas, as we started to do research the medical treatment for Phoenix, because he had severe infection into his bones, he needed to be put on systematic antibiotics, and they actually had to spend a week in the vet hospital just to start to clear that infection up. Because he had to be on IVs and that sort of thing. And Kim had reached out to Dr. Redden of Kentucky, and Dr. Redden's one of the foremost experts in veterinarians. He's both a veterinarian and a farrier, but he invented the process called tendon cutting. And we knew that we could put a horse in a prosthetic because we did it with Midnight. So, and if you look at our Facebook page or our website or a video, you'll see that we actually put Phoenix in a prosthetic. First time ever that a full-size 800-pound horse had been put in a prosthetic similar to Phoenix's. But what happened was, because of the results of his injury, his coffin bone rotated. And the coffin bone should be flat. And what happened
That's
is...
the bone right on top of the hoof.
Yeah. And it rotated to a point to where it started to come through his soul, all right? And when that happened, obviously he couldn't wear the prosthetic. So Kim had reached out to Dr. Redden, and Dr. Redden and I had extensive conversations with John, and he said, I'm willing to donate this, you know, I'll give you a consultation on Phoenix, because at that point, we knew that we could amputate and put him in a prosthetic, or we could try this process and see if it would work. And the one thing that we want to do with animals is make sure that, A, we can keep them out of pain, and that, and you know, you're going through a stroke, I understand recovery, and people that have heart surgery, I mean, there's always some type of pain, right? So, but in the animal's case, because they can't tell us, we want to make sure that we can manage it. We can always tell by their spirit how they're doing. And in Phoenix's case, he had an incredible disposition and an incredible will to live, and he was only 2. So Dr. Redden said, there's something really fascinating that's happening. You know, I'll be happy to consult with you, and I'll do it at no charge, but there's a company that I've been working with called Nanofibers, and they've invented a technology that takes stem cells and inserts it into these fibers, and if we cut that tendon and insert the stem cells, we believe that the tendon will heal normally and naturally, and that will allow him to have his coffin bone rotated back to where it should be, and hopefully he will grow out a hoof. Now, we put God in everything we do at Ranch and Rescue. It's real simple. I mean, I don't think my successes are a result of you know, anything great about me. I really attribute everything to God and working together as a team. But what happened is really remarkable. I mean, he's the first horse in the world. You know, we did this 7 months ago. We had to keep it secret because we didn't know if it was going to work. And we just announced it because he's the first horse in the world to ever receive this type of treatment with stem cells in an attempt to regenerate the tendon. The tendon looks incredible, completely normal. But the most important thing is that he's growing out a hoof. And
That's
now,
so amazing to me.
It is.
That's just really so amazing.
and to me. And he's in a special shoe. And we're limiting we don't want him to run because we want his tendon to build up more strength. And his hoof is growing out.
Wow.
But we're hoping that in the next couple of months that the temporary shoe can come off, and that we can, that his hoof will be strong enough that he'll be able to just be a horse, right? Which is the whole idea, and that we can use him in animal therapy. I do want to say that the shoe's a little expensive, so if anyone wants to donate, they're a public charity, and we'll send you a tax receipt. But, again, this is, oops, sorry about that. This is, it's really amazing, and again, it goes to...
And when you say therapy, you have a number of people. You have a full-time therapist on staff.
Right, Kim Wilson.
And what Kim does is she works with a variety of people with different disorders. One of them that I find interesting are kids with anorexia.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we do what we call equine-assisted therapy, all right? And so our therapists have the same certifications that any other therapist would have, but in addition, they're EGALA and PATH certified, so they're able to use animals as the conduit of a therapy session. And the thing about horses is that they mirror your body language, so they know if you're lying, they know if you're frustrated, they know if you're afraid, all right? And the therapist knows how to take the session depending upon how the individual reacts with the horse or the equine, because it could be a donkey. And in the case of, and so we serve, we have patients that are drug and alcohol. We have kids that have, had specific trauma in their life that need therapy. And then we have veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder and a lot of other issues that make up our practice. And as a matter of fact, we have a waiting list. We're getting ready to hire a second therapist for therapy. But getting back to your point, there's several success cases, and one of the ones that really brings, they all bring tears to my eyes, but because it's beautiful to watch. But kids that have anorexia, you watch them come in and they're at 65 pounds or 70 pounds, and these are young people that are 17 or 18 years old. And we take our horses that have been starved and neglected, and they get equine therapy, and then we talk to them about nutrition, and we talk to them about the importance of health, and they get to feed the animals, and they learn about nutrition, and as they come back week after week, there's something that happens in the subconscious and with the bond, again, that develops with the animal, and the kids get healthy. And they develop this relationship, and even after their therapy ends, they continue to come back because they're so attached to the animals, right? But to watch them get healthy is the most beautiful thing.
You're working also with the juvenile department up in Denton County, bringing kids in to help build their self-esteem.
I'm going to start that, right, in the next couple of months.
Veterans. Your assistant, Justin, he spent 18 months in Afghanistan. I think being there helps him, but he's wanting to bring in more veterans who are wounded. One thing Kim told me was working with these families, it's not just the soldier that came back, but it's also their kids come in, and it helps them understand why is mom or dad different now. Right. And working with the kid now I have one story. The first time I was there, we're almost out of time. First time I was there, midnight, was in a pen. Very small pen, because he was, he couldn't move around a lot. They were afraid he was going to start running.
And a great problem to have.
Well, right. It is a good problem, but he wasn't healed enough yet.
Right.
So he's in a small pen. He was also starting to get fat. So they were limiting his food.
That's all that cable TV and popcorn.
It could be. Well, one of the other horses that was there, big pile of hay, One of the other horses was taking a mouthful of hay, walking over to Midnight's pen, dropping it in the pen, walking back, taking another
Oh, no way. That is wonderful.
mouthful of hay, dropping it in Midnight's pen, walking, and just going back and forth and making sure that Midnight had enough food because he thought Midnight was hungry. These animals have so much compassion. They are so loving, and people are abusing them.
Yeah, it breaks my heart.
But these animals understand that abuse, and it's not. There was another animal that had just come in. It was in a far pasture, and instead of all of them going over to mob him, they were going over one at a time just to look.
Yeah.
And they were very. It was interesting because they were very careful. A group wouldn't go over. They were afraid it would scare them. So one would go over and they'd nuzzle him a little bit and then walk away. And it was just they were telling him, just like Bob tells the animals when they get there, "You're safe now." These animals are telling each other, "You're safe now." You know, he's right. You really are safe.
Yeah.
I mean, these animals are amazing. And, you know, and dogs and cats are different. They rely on us in a completely different way. But these big animals, and one of my favorites there is Al. Al is a 7-foot tall llama.
Do the llamas and the horses get along okay?
Yes. Oh, well, Al makes sure. Al runs the place. Al, Al you know, he prances around the place and makes sure but when a new person is there, Al follows him around. And you know, and he doesn't spit like most llamas do. He, you know, unless you do something to him, but you know, you wouldn't. Does Al let you pet him at all?
Oh yeah, me, but not too many people.
Yeah, I mean, I touched him once, and he kind of looked at me, and it was a look that said, "Okay, once."
Right. Well, you know, I'm all their daddy. All right.
But we do hear stories, even recently in the news, about animals being used, animal therapy being used to reach autistic kids, even because they can relate to the animals in a way that fellow human beings can't reach them. I just think it's amazing that you're doing all of this work. This is just
well, thank you. It's beautiful, and I have to tell you about equine therapy that. We get most of our referrals from psychiatrists and psychologists and that sort of thing that send patients to us that they believe that this type of therapy will help. But it is by far the most rewarding, best thing that I've ever done.
It's such a good thing for anybody. If you want to go visit, you can call, make an appointment.
Do you have the website?
Yeah.
ranchhandrescue.org.
And then also volunteer. You can have volunteers come out.
And also donate.
And also donate, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And we're talking about getting you out to Razzle Dazzle Dallas on the street down here so people can meet Midnight.
And maybe bring them.
That would be great.
Yeah, Midnight would be perfect for that. And that brings us to the end of another Lambda Weekly. We're going to do an inauguration show next week, Patty?
We're going to try to.
Okay. And we'll be back next week with more Lambda Weekly. See you then.
KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.